Have you been on the fence about investing in real estate, or perhaps you've dawdled a bit, but you're still not seeing the results you need, or you might be like, is it the right time for real estate? You've been told real estate is definitely one of the gateways to wealth, generational wealth, having continuous wealth. So if this is where you're at, or you might just, okay, let's see what this is about. You want to listen in for the next few minutes as I'm talking to an amazing guest here today. It's Fong. Thank you so much for coming on, Fong. Fong is a business strategist. He's a real estate coach. He is a 3 times best-selling author. He is a lot of things. So we know that we will be getting some great practical strategies for this for the next few minutes as we talk, Fong. So thank you again, Fong. I really do appreciate you being here, and you just deciding to support business owners, entrepreneurs, CEOs in so many areas.
Awesome. Well, thank you very much for having me. It's always a pleasure being able to share and also impact as many people as I can. So thank you.
Yes. So one of the things I want us to start off with, there's when you get into the whole world of real estate, there's so many opinions, so many views, there's so many success stories, so many stories that are not successful. Let's start off with. Usually persons like to go on with, it's successful. It was just so great. This happened, but tell me about one of those situations or experiences where it just did not work and why. Let's start off with that. Let's keep it real.
This kind of ties into the title where you go 2 things that you must know. Well, I guess we'll just let that right out of the bag right away here. I find that a lot of people who aren't successful in real estate or don't start in real estate, and for me, I've experienced this myself. It's one of those reasons why certain projects of mine didn't happen or didn't go through, and also why it took me so long to get my very first deal. And so the 2 things that I can kind of categorize it down to, because there's a lot of stuff that you do need to do. But you could do all this stuff, but when you don't have these 2 things, everything just kind of falls apart. And the number one thing is you have to be willing to take action. If you're not willing to pick up the phone, if you're not willing to go outside of your house, if you're not willing to actually do something, then it really doesn't matter, right? Because the thing is, before I started in real estate, I wanted to do real estate. We went to courses, we studied, we read books, we did all that stuff. But if we don't actually go out and do something about that and utilize the information that we've gained, then nothing happens. So that's the one thing that I think is very, very important. You have to be willing to go out and do something and apply the knowledge that you've gained. And the second thing is surrounding yourself with the people that would help you become successful. And those people would include people like yourself, an accountant who's able to help you go through the numbers and all that kind of stuff. Your realtor, a mortgage broker, and one of the most important people in that group or that team of support people would be your coach. And that's one thing that really changed my career or my portfolio, is that, yes, I had the knowledge. Yes, I'm willing to take action, but there's still that fear of, is this action correct? Yes. What if something happens? What if this happens? I want to have some person to bounce ideas off of, and also somebody to challenge me so that I know that what I'm doing is correct. So it wasn't until I got my very first coach that I got that peace of mind that putting an offer on this property or putting an offer on that property was the right way to go. So when you take all the stuff that you need to do in real estate and all the other details and steps that you need to take, if you don't have these 2 things, then it's very difficult for everything to actually gel together, because 1, you want to be able to have that person to kind of bounce ideas off of, and 2, you have to be willing to do it.
Yeah, that's great. It's kind of like weight loss. You have all the information, eat this way, do this, but if you don't do it, you're not going to see the results, right? And it's always checking in to see, is this working, changing your strategy quickly. I found that timing is so important. And another thing I want us to touch on, the strategies that you've mentioned, there's so many different avenues or, ways to dive into real estate. What has been your experience in which way, as a beginner, should you start by probably flipping houses? Should you start by building from scratch, property management? It's such a huge umbrella, right, that covers so many different areas. What would you say is probably the first or the easiest way to get started then?
It comes down to what your background is and what kind of access do you have, right?
Okay.
There's four main types of real estate investing. The very first one would be wholesaling, where you basically lock properties under contract and then you can sell the contract to somebody else. That way you don't have to actually purchase a place, you don't have to actually manage the place. But the main thing that you need to be able to do is go out and find these properties. You have to be able to find these deals. You have to be able to negotiate these properties to a point where you could get them under contract at a very good price so that you could sell this contract to somebody else who would then buy it. And then also have enough there for you to make $2,000, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, depending on the deal. So really, wholesaling is a great way for people to get in if they don't have the funds themselves. But you have to put in a lot of time to build your lists and build those relationships and be able to know who you could sell these contracts to, because there's only a short period of time. The second way is lease options, where you basically are able to rent the place and then re-rent that off to somebody else and then have a contract in place to buy that place 3 years down the road. That's another way of doing real estate with no money in, and kind of leveraging your contacts, leveraging the ability to connect with different people and whatnot. But you're dealing with a lot of managing. You're working with a lot of different people. You're working with the owner, and you're also working with the tenants as well, making sure the tenants will eventually be able to buy the property in 2, 3, 4 years, depending on the contract timeline. The next thing is something that most people are familiar with, the buy, fix, and flip, where you buy a property, fix it up, and then flip it. However, you would have to have access to funds, whether it's yourself or somebody else's funds, and then also have good communications with contractors and people who could do renovations, unless you yourself have great skills in renovations. Usually, this type of investor would work hand in hand with the wholesaler, because this type of investor would go, you know what, I don't have time looking for these deals, and they'll partner up with the wholesalers who will go out and look for deals and then sell them to the buy, fix, and flippers. And then finally, the last one would be the buy, fix, or buy and hold, where you buy a property and keep on renting it for long-term cash flow. So in a very, very quick kind of Coles Notes kind of way, those are the four main kind of categories as to how you should or can invest in real estate.
Yeah, thanks for that, because I know there's so many different methods to dive in, and sometimes it can be overwhelming, especially for those who are not very experienced and familiar with the ins and outs of the market. The other thing I've heard, and I've heard it in the business world a lot too, where persons will say you have to be a multi-million-dollar company or a great company to save on taxes, or things like that. And I've heard it as well that you can't just say you're going to just get into real estate. You have to have a lot of money. You touched on it a little bit in terms of leveraging other person's money, but I want you to elaborate a bit on it, because what would you say are some of the barriers to entry when it comes to getting into, whichever area of the real estate world that you want to start off with?
I think the main thing that stops a lot of people from starting is access to funds. How much money do they have themselves? And then also how much money can they actually access or partner up with somebody else? And they feel that, well, if I don't have the money, then I can't do it. But the thing is, in this world, like, there's a lot of opportunities out there. There's a lot of deals out there that you never know what another investor is looking for. You never know what your friend's looking for or a partner is looking for. And therefore, you need to be able to build those relationships and see what each person's kind of what their goals are. So for myself, the very first thing was, okay, where am I going to get the funds? I may or may not have the full down payment. I may or may not have any down payment. How am I going to buy this property? And the thing is, for me, I like to keep my options open. I know that I have contacts that have funds. I know that I have contacts who have great credit. I know I have contacts who are great property managers. So when it comes to real estate, there's really 3 key pieces that you need. You need a person with money. And if that person has lots of money, they could take care of the mortgage, they could take care of the credit side as well, or completely pay it off downright without any mortgage and credit, right? If that person has lots of funds. The other side of it would be access to mortgages and access to credit. And then the other person would be the manager, the person who manages the whole thing and whatnot, and finding tenants and whatnot. So those are the three key pieces that I think is key to being able to buy real estate or invest in real estate. Which part do you fit in, right? So when I first started, I had great credit and I had some access to funds either for myself. Therefore, I was able to put a down payment on something and then also get a mortgage on it. But then what I wasn't very comfortable with was the management and the finding the person to rent it and all that kind of stuff. So then I hired a property manager, or I partnered up with somebody who's willing to come in and manage. And then as I went along, I go, okay, I spent all my reserve funds. Now I need access to funds. So then now you're looking for money partners, right? But I still had great credit. I was able to get mortgages, but I could now partner up or joint venture with somebody with the actual cash to do the down payment. And then I'll provide the mortgage. And then by that time, I had enough experience to manage it myself. So then I took care of two parts out of three, and somebody else comes in the third. I've gone into properties and deals where all I did was qualify for mortgage. And then somebody else came up with the money, somebody else did the management. So it kind of depends on which path you're able to kind of fit into, and then how many of those can you deal with. And then eventually, once you get more and more experience, you could partner up on bigger deals, find different opportunities, and expand into different things. So.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for that. And it talks about the importance of collaboration and support. Like, we go faster together and getting the support of somebody else that might be weak in this area and this, type of resource, but there's somebody else who can come on and we partner well and so forth. Another thing, and I'll quickly say, we are talking about real estate, and if you do have any questions, you can put them in the chat. You can reach out to Fang after. He'll put his comments and his contacts and also in the chat after. But the other thing I want us to talk about is the importance of a coach. So I remember when we purchased our first home that, the focus was just on getting the mortgage, getting the qualification for the mortgage. However, one of the missing parts, which we had a great person who was advising us, but it came to light that it's not just to qualify the mortgage or have this down payment. You also have to think about afterwards. Not just you have to think about the monthly payments. You have to think about property taxes, maintenance, everything else that comes with home ownership that when you're renting or living with family, you're not directly responsible for. So I want you to elaborate on that important piece of having a coach support to guide you through these, streets to help you know what to do.
Yeah, so I kind of alluded to before, where I spent a lot of time, like my wife and I spent a lot of time researching, reading. We're engineers by trade, so we like to dabble into the numbers and understand how the calculations work and the cash flow and all that kind of stuff. But the one thing that we were missing was that person that was able to guide us along. I remember the very first offer that we've ever put out there, and we were scared out of our minds. We knew that the numbers are going to work. It was like a condo that was on sale for $150,000, and this is about 11 years ago. It was the 2-bedroom condo for $150,000 in the south side of the city that we were living, and we're looking at it and we're like, you know what, we can make this work if we offer, let's say, 90 grand and have room for negotiation. Well, that's a buffer of $60,000. So right now, when I'm looking at these numbers, I'm like, this is gonna be great. We could, even if we had to settle for 100, let's say 110, there's still $40,000 there to kind of buffer off of, and then we could sell it for 130. We still make 30 grand or 20 grand after all expenses and all that kind of stuff. So the thing is, we knew the numbers are gonna work, right? Even if we had to do some renovations and whatnot, the numbers were there to support it. We sent out that offer and we were scared out of our minds. We were hoping 100% that they will reject the offer. Because we didn't know. We were so scared that the owner was going to say, deal, Here you go for $90,000. Because we're like, what are we gonna do after we get this? Like we were so scared. And as you can imagine, the owner didn't even reply because no way, there's no way I'm selling it for $90,000. And then they didn't even counter offer. So we were completely saying, wow, that felt great. We're good. We're that's no problem. Don't worry about it. But we realized that we're so scared of what's going to happen next. And after we got a coach, it was a lot easier for us to follow through on deals. It was after we got a coach that we went from 0 properties to about 30 some properties, where we either joint ventured or owned ourselves. And after you get the property, as you mentioned before, there's all the management and then all the other stuff that comes with it. Well, having that coach gave us the peace of mind of, if anything does happen, there's somebody there to support us. There's somebody there who's been there, who's done it, who's still doing it, that can tell us what's next. And the biggest peace of mind that I got was when I had some tenant issues where, you have some evictions and you had to go to court and all. And again, lots of sleepless nights. I was completely scared out of my mind. And then I just constantly, hey, coach, what am I going to do now? Hey, coach, what's happening now? Oh, no, what's going to happen? Like he got bombarded with messages and messages to the point where I kind of felt bad for him. But hey, you know what? That's what he got paid for, and for that support and for that sounding board, so that I can go to sleep at night. And and therefore, I provide the same kind of service for a lot of my clients, telling them, okay, here's all the stuff that's going to happen. This is what you can expect. But here are the probabilities of it actually happening. Like when we talk about managing tenants and whatnot, lots of people are saying, I don't want to do real estate because I don't want to deal with tenants. Or I don't want to wake up in the morning and go fix a toilet. I don't want to wake up in the morning and get a phone call. Well, all that kind of stuff can be managed, right? It's whether or not you want to do it or not. And then if you don't want to do all that kind of stuff when it comes to managing tenants and whatnot, then you could think of a way to mitigate those situations. For myself, I train my tenants from a very early stage that I like to text message everything. I don't like to pick up the phone. I get a lot of calls. I get a lot of numbers that I don't recognize. So I tell them right off the bat, I don't answer phone calls. So if you have something you want to say, text me. That will give me some time to actually assess what the issue is, and then also get back to you with a proper answer, rather than you catching me off guard and then having to think on the fly. So therefore, I'm not being surprised by something that I'm not prepared for. Secondly, I also tell them a lot of these things is going to be dealt with by contractor. So I'm not going to be the person that's going to come in and fix anything. It's going to be my contractor. Right? So I'm very hands-off, but I set a precedent at the very beginning as to how I want things to be managed and what my expectations are. And the third thing would be, if you treat your tenants well, then there's a good chance that they treat your property well.
Exactly. Yeah, because there's so many horror stories with tenants and how they damage property. It can be horrifying for sure.
But
I wanted to talk with you on...
Just to interject here, but also those are the only stories you hear. So if you only hear horror stories, you believe that real estate's filled with horror stories every single day. Yeah, but people aren't going to come up to you, hey, guess what? My tenant is awesome. Well, end of story.
Yeah, you don't hear that often.
Right? So that's why people
and
talk
that's
about
true, because we really don't hear that often. Yeah, but it exists, right? We don't hear it often, but it does exist. I want to talk about those red flags with coaches, because even in my inbox, I get it sometimes. I can do this, that. And sometimes, I mean, persons are still falling for coaches who don't deliver, or they're just flat scams, right? So what are some of the things you should look for in a real estate coach so you don't get caught by these scams and these frauds? I know we can't prevent it, but we always seek to minimize it.
Well, I think the very first thing is to make sure that they are a person with the kind of success that you want to achieve, and that they have been doing it and they're doing it as we speak. You don't want somebody who goes, you know what, 10 years ago, I was able to get all this real estate and I'm very successful, so I'll coach you now. Well, that doesn't really apply because of the time difference, right? They
Yeah.
don't know what trends are right now. They don't know what the market is right now. So it's hard for them to coach you on the current basis if they're
Mm-hmm.
not in it, right? So you want somebody
Yeah.
who's doing it right now as well. The second thing is to make sure that it's a person that you can work with, and a little bit of has a little bit of intimidation as well. Because if somebody is completely all friendly with you, then
Yeah.
even if you don't do something, then you don't feel bad telling them, yeah, I didn't do it. Right? So
Like, oh,
all
I
the
won't get
coaches,
that slap.
all the coaches that I have, there is a little bit of intimidation factor where I'm like, I'm scared to tell them that I didn't do my job, or I'm scared to tell them that I didn't follow through. So therefore,
Yeah.
every time I know that I have a call, I have to make sure, did I do this? Did I do that? No? Okay, I better do this before I make that call, or else they're going to call me out on it. Right. So, and
Yeah.
then, but at the same time, somebody that you don't mind working with for a long period of time. At least that's from my experience.
Yeah. And that makes sense because you want someone who's gonna hold you accountable, who's not gonna just, oh, you didn't do that's okay. I mean, there are consequences. Timing is so important in this market too, right? So the last thing is persons listening on, they'll watch the replay, they want to start investing. What should they make? What's that pre-qualifier before they reach out to you? What should they make sure they have ready, already done the state before I even send an email or I even send a text to Fong? What should I make sure that I have so I'm not, yeah.
Well, for me, like I said at the very beginning, you have to be willing to take action.
Mm-hmm.
And the thing is, I'm always open to having discussions with people to see where people are at and what their long-term financial goals are or the long-term investment goals are. If real estate really is in fact in their wheelhouse, and then seeing if that's what they want to do. If that's truly what they want to do and they want to get into it, I'm very open to having those conversations with them for about 30 minutes, 35 minutes, and see, okay, are you going to be on the right path? And then connect them with people if that I think will help them. If it's not me, then I will have the team or the people that will be able to help them for sure.
Okay, should they make sure they have a certain range with their credit score or that kind of thing first, or not so early?
It's the desire, right? It's a lot of it has
Okay.
to do with desire. If you're only going, you know what, I'm going to try this, and then after a few months it doesn't work, then I'm out. Then that's wasting your time. That's wasting my time, and it's not consistent if you're not persistent.
Okay. I like that. That could be like a little tagline. So yeah, thank you so much, Fang. This was really great having all these strategies practical. Now it's like practical. Where can persons find you? I know you'll put the information in the comments, but there are some persons who they just want to hear it, and they might not even read the comments. Yeah.
You can find me on Facebook and LinkedIn, Fong Chua, FONGCHUA. And then also you can email me at fong.chua@yourarea.ca, yourarea.ca. But you can also find me on my YouTube channel, Your Area TV. I have a lot of stuff there. I have a podcast as well called the Peak Potential Success Show. There, I've actually interviewed a lot of real estate investors, lots of renovators, lots of very successful CEOs and business people and all celebrities as well on my podcast. So there's a lot of information there, a lot of great content. And yeah, like I said, reach out to me, message me on Facebook, LinkedIn, whichever way is best for your listeners. And I'm open to having discussions.
Okay, thank you so much. So you've heard it, guys, and do remember to share this broadcast. And if you do have any questions, you can reach out to Fang directly. You can place them in the comments as well. So thank you so much again, Fang. I really appreciate this, and I'm sure those listening on really, they were making their notes, and they're just thankful for this information. I'm so honored to have had you, and we'll be signing off now, guys.
Awesome. Thank you very much.
Bye, everyone. Yes, thanks. Okay, I think we're ended now.